to take roll and ascertain if we have a quorum.
Chairman Respicio,
Present.
Senator Tom Adda,
Present.
Speaker Wampat, Vice Speaker Cruz, Senator Munya Barnes, Senator Uggan, Senator Rodriguez, Senator Snickles, Senator Underwood, Senator Tony Adda, Senator Torres. Mr. Chair, there is a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I would entertain a motion that we accept the COR meeting minutes from August 10, 2015, subject to correction. Okay. Thank you. It's been moved and second. There being no objection, motion carries. The chair will recognize Senator Barnes to give an update, as she always does in these rules meetings regarding the document tracking. Senator Barnes, our legislative secretary.
C2 Masi, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, our colleagues should have a copy of the rules and regs that have been submitted to the legislative secretary. And I just want to note for the record that as from the last meeting, there have been several that have been lapsed into law. Each of the committee oversights have said that they've talked to the agencies involved and that everything was in order, and those rules and regs are now law. There is one that will be due for the timeline on the rules and regs that was submitted, and that was sent to the Committee on Higher Education, and that date is on the rules and regs sent down regarding training and scholarships for January 4th, 2016. So that's really the only one pending on a new date, on a new timeline on rules and regs submitted to date.
Okay, thank you, Senator Barnes. Any questions regarding that item on the agenda? If none, on item 5, the ratification of referrals, I'll entertain a motion to ratify the referrals I made for bill numbers 152-33 through 189-33, as well as the appointments and resolutions. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's moved and second by the Vice Speaker. Hearing no objections, motion carries. Okay, I'll recognize each member of this committee for purposes of making motions to place bills, resolutions, or appointments on the session agenda, beginning with our Vice Chair, Senator Adda, Tom Adda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move to place Bill 175-33 as substituted and as reported out of committee. Bill 175-33 pertains to the Chamorro Land Trust land inventory, and in that bill, it does basically 4 things. One is it establishes a process for the Chamorro Land Trust to identify and designate properties in the Chamorro Land Trust inventory that will be available for commercial leasing. The second thing that the bill does is it provides the rules and regulations that will basically govern the leasing of these Chamorro Land Trust properties. The third thing that it does is it establishes the Chamorro Land Trust Survey and Infrastructure Fund, and it is this fund from which then will be the proceeds from leases that are received from the properties that are leased out. Those proceeds will go into this account at least up until the year 2020. And then, so that actually, those are the 3 major components of Bill 175.
Okay, so on the motion by Senator Adda, Tom Adda, to place Bill 175-33, and again, we know that it's whatever version is reported out of the committee, and I think for this particular motion, Senator Adda is also requesting that it be on the top of the agenda, because we also do bills numerically. So, Senator Adda, on that motion, there are no objections, so ordered.
Thank
you
you.
have other bills?
I have another bill, Bill 181-33, and that has to do with the providing for a fee waiver of fees for the registration of vehicles for veterans who are the recipients of the nation's 4 highest medals of valor. And more specifically, the 4 highest medals of valor that are issued is the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, and the Bronze Star Medal with the V device. Now, the recipients of these medals are basically individuals who, during their engagement in the battlefield, have done, over and above what was really required of them. For example, this is the guy who would, instead of waiting in the foxhole for the firefight to kind of settle down, this is the guy that will grab a bag of hand grenades and low crawl up to a machine gun nest to neutralize it. And so they are given special recognition for those acts of valor. And so the bill suggests that, or proposes to then waive the vehicle registration fee for these group of veterans.
Okay. On the motion to place that bill on the agenda, there being no objections, so ordered.
Finally, Mr. Chairman, there is a bill, move to place Bill 164-33 on the agenda. Bill 164, I would call it as a foundational bill, because there are other bills to follow by other senators that are really kind of waiting in the wings for this particular bill. And what this bill does is it creates the survey fund, from which the proceeds of the sale of bull cart trails and land remnants will then be deposited into this account. Right now, when the government sells bull cart trails, it basically goes into the general fund, and it gets disbursed from there. But this one basically will capture those funds and place them into the survey fund for the surveying of Chamorro Land Trust properties.
Okay. On the motion to place Bill 164, again, whatever version is reported out of Senator Ada's committee, there being no objections, so ordered. And then finally, Senator Ada.
And Mr. Chairman, there's one more bill that really I've been putting off in the past couple of sessions because of the quota that we have. And Bill 137 is an act to amend the land transfer for an individual, George Toves, as authorized by Public Law 2868, to be area for area, and that does not include land used by the military utility easement. And basically the situation here is that the individual agreed to give up his property, exchange his property for another area so that we could have access into the Okudu High School. And so when we gave him the exchange, lo and behold, we didn't realize that there was a utility easement that went right down the middle of that property. And I believe that easement was totaled up to about 200 and some square meters. I forget the size of it. So what the bill proposes to do then is to give Mr. Toves an additional 200 square meters or whatever it was that represents the area occupied by the easement on a contiguous piece of property, so that he is made whole, and truly then the land exchange can be set to be on an area for area basis. Insofar as the easement that goes right down the middle of the property, he's working closely with Comnaf Marianas to get that shifted down to the boundary. So that's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So on Senator Ada's motion to place Bill 137-33 on the agenda, hearing no objection, motion carries. So for 181, 164, and 137 will just fall numerically, right, in numeric order?
Well, 181, well, yeah, they can come in numerical order, but I would like to just emphasize that, in view of the fact that Veterans Day is coming up on November 11th, I just want to make sure that Bill 181 gets its fair day of, to be heard and acted on, so that, it can hopefully be enacted by the governor before Veterans Day.
Well, that's a fair enough request, and so what I'm hearing maybe then is a motion from you to place 181 after 175?
Yes, please,
Okay.
to place Bill 181 right after Bill 175.
Okay, thanks. It's for the clerks and my office that's following. Okay, there being no objections, thank you for the motion. Motion carries. Speaker Wampat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to place bill number, well, let me do the lower number, I guess, 169-33. What that is to approve a leaseback agreement between the University of Guam and the University of the Guam Endowment Foundation for construction of the Student Services Center and their engineering annex at the University of Guam. This was already approved. They were ready by USDA. We had passed into legislation a couple years ago. It was awarded last year by USDA. However, there is a need that there be an interim financing to take place. And as we were working with them, we wanted to make sure that they do not exceed what the original debt obligation would be annually. So based on the new financing rates, interest rates, then we were able to work with USDA that they would be able to stay within their annual debt obligation. So it would be no additional increase from the government of Guam. Is just to allow to put language into for interim financing with USDA. So that's Bill 169.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. On your motion to place Bill 169-33, and the Oversight Chair, Senator Nicholas, indicated that a committee report will be filed. Thank you, Senator Nicholas. On the motion, there being no objections, motion carries.
Thank
Madam
you.
Speaker.
The second bill is Bill number 170, I think it's 174? 174. Bill 174 deals with the leaseback financing with, I guess we call them GEEF, is the Guam Educational Foundation, financing rather, foundation. And they currently hold, of course, a lease for the government. They have an opportunity to refinance the loans right now for the leaseback schools. And they're looking at yielding about approximately $2.3 million that would automatically then go into the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund. It will not increase our Guam's indebtedness at all because this is a leaseback. It would not also extend the original lease that we have with GEEF. So it's just an opportunity to be able again to yield some monies in which we definitely need for educational facilities. So I'm asking our colleagues for their support to place this on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So on the Speaker's motion to place 174, again, a committee report will be filed as
Yes.
indicated by the Oversight Chair, Senator Nicholas. So there being no objection, motion carries. Do you have anything else, Speaker?
That's it, thank
no
you.
Appointments.
No point.
Okay. Mr. Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me in the last session to pull 139 back to committee because I had received word that there were issues with the bill. I've since received, after the last session, a letter from counsel for the parties. In this bill is to address a land issue behind Micronesia Mall. And at the very beginning of the session, I received a letter from the Attorney General's office, one of the staffers, asking that I introduce legislation to to allow for the settlement to be approved. After that, the Attorney General's office and the counsel for the estate were in negotiations for for how to write the legislation. It was all messed up. But anyway, finally, 29-33 as substituted by the Committee on Transportation. I want to thank the chairman for having the hearing and for allowing the Committee on Rules to make one minor amendment to the substituted bill. And I'd like to just ask that that be placed on the agenda. I'll include a copy of the letter that I received from counsel for the estate.
Okay, I believe you have
augment
copies
that.
of both the bill that you're proposing
Yes.
to amend and the copy from council.
Correct.
Okay, so
Okay.
let me,
I have one confirmation. I'll be doing the confirmation hearing tonight for Catherine Tonight Gale to the Civil Service Commission because I want to make sure that that's fully staffed. And hopefully I should be able to get the report out before we vote on Thursday or Friday. So I'd just like to, in anticipation of that hearing tonight, ask that that nomination be placed on the agenda. I noted in the news the other day that they were having problems with, not so much the Civil Service Commission, but a number of the agencies are having problems with quorums because of not having enough people. So I want to make sure that the ones in my purview,
So-
I don't get blamed for it.
so on the vice speaker's motion to place that nominee on the agenda pending the submission of the committee report, which will follow the public hearing, and he did ask for an expedited hearing schedule. So let me entertain that first motion. Is there an objection to that motion? Okay, that motion carries. And on his second, on his first motion was the matter of Bill 29-33, and that there's a request to further amend this by the Committee on Rules so that it be consistent with the settlement agreement agreed to by the Attorney General's office and as well as the lawyers for the trust. And the chair will recognize that Senator Torres has indicated that she'd be recused from this and from participating from this particular issue, and so I'd like if there are no objections, I'd like the minutes to reflect that she's been excused from this particular matter, and certainly from this voting on the placement of Bill 29 on the agenda. So, colleague, you have a copy of the bill? Okay, on the Vice Speaker's motion, so this would be further amended by the Committee on Rules to place this bill on the agenda. There being no objections, so ordered. Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Speaker. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Senator Barnes.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if I may, I do have one appointment, and that is Cecilia C.A. Paris to the membership as the Board of Directors to the Guam Housing Corporation.
Okay, on the motion for the placement of that nominee on the agenda, hearing no objections, so ordered.
I also have Bill 152-33, Mr. Chair, if I may, which is an act to appropriate funds from the fiscal year 2014 HOT surplus fund to the Guam Visitors Bureau, and this is the amount requested for the Guam FIFA. That request was at a $400,000. We did have a public hearing, and hearing all the responses from the community and working closely with the FIFA community, we're asking that this bill be put on the agenda.
Okay, on Senator Barnes' motion to place 152-33, again, whatever version she reports out of her committee, hearing no objections, so ordered.
The second bill is 26-33 COR, which is an act to add a new section 10315 to Chapter 10, Title 5 of the Guam Code Annotated, and this is relative to the online and public disclosure of medical licenses issued by the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. We did have a public hearing very early on in the term, Mr. Chair, and a committee report was filed way back in April, and it's just asking that that all medical licenses be posted online, and I ask that my colleagues support me in those efforts.
Okay. Thank you. On the motion to place Bill 26 on the agenda, hearing no objections, so ordered.
And bill number 111-33 LS, which is an act to amend section 77119 to chapter 77, title 10 of Guam Code, annotated relative to the assignment of police officers working closely with an MOU with the GURA agency. I would have this bill amended, Mr. Chair, with the recommended changes.
Well, there was a committee report. Are you proposing an amendment now?
No,
On the floor?
on the floor.
So the,
I'm sorry, as there was an amendment to that, if I'm not mistaken. Right? There was an
well,
amendment
committee
to this.
report was filed on 7/16.
But there was an amendment to that. I think there was a, whatever reports reported out. Yeah.
Okay. So on the motion to place Bill 111 on the agenda, hearing no objections, and it's the version that Senator Uggins committee reported out. Hearing no objections, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Senator Dennis?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move to place Bill 76 on the agenda.
Did you say 40 bills?
No, no. No, sorry about that.
Because I want to prepare us for 40 bills.
No, Bill 76, which is relative to providing for the qualifications of the Guam Territorial Epidemiologist of the Department of Public Health and Social Services.
Okay. On the motion to place Bill 76 on the agenda, no objections, so ordered.
Thank you. The next bill, Mr. Chairman, is placing Bill 145-33, which is an act to authorize the Woman, Infant, and Children's Program in the Bureau of Economic Security, Department of Public Health and Social Services to utilize joinder and mutual use procurements.
Okay. On Senator Rodriguez's motion to place Bill 145 on the agenda, there being no objections, so ordered.
And my second to the last bill is Bill 166,
Second to the last.
which is to, it's relative to reestablishing the Banking and Insurance Enforcement Fund. Bill 166, and that was
166.
reported, yes.
Okay. On the motion to place Bill 166 on the agenda, and that you will have a committee report. Right,
Yes, I believe
filed.
it's been filed already.
Oh, no, not yet. Well, maybe it has, but
Okay.
not on this list. Okay, there being no objections, so ordered.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, to place Bill 176-33, it's an act relative to the classification of personnel vital to the protection of Guam's natural resources.
Okay. On that motion, hearing no objections, so ordered.
Thank you. I have three
Bill 176.
confirmations.
Okay.
One is for Dr. Nathaniel Berg, and want me to do it separately?
If it's okay, we'll entertain them all at once.
Okay, Nathaniel Berg and Phil Flores to serve as members of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, and also for Sharon Davis to serve as a trustee of the Guam Memorial Hospital Board of Trustees.
Okay. On that motion, hearing no objections and no objections, that we vote together as one motion. There being no objections, motion carries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Senator Uggan?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to present these pieces of legislation before the committee rules and to be placed on the agenda. I want to also thank the Appropriations Chair for entertaining these measures during a public hearing and reporting it out of this committee. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move for the placement of Bill number 146-33, which is relative to the establishment of a War on Terror Fallen Heroes Monument on the Adelu Parade Field in the Ricardo J. Bradley Governor's Complex.
Okay, and I'm consistent with Senator Ada's request. with Bill 181, would you like that to be third on the agenda?
Yes, please.
Okay. So on the motion to place, on Senator Uggin's motion to place that bill on the agenda as the third item on the second reading file, there being no objections to order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move for the placement of the following appropriation measures, and I will highlight their allocation only because they're collectively, only because they're originating from the same savings funding source. Bill number 153-33, which would appropriate $25,000 from the savings that was realized in fiscal year 2015 pursuant to Public Law 33-60, specifically for funding the construction of the Fallen Heroes Monument, which was just mentioned in Bill number 146. I'd like to also add Bill number 154, that request the body to consider 154-33, which would appropriate $100,000 from the same funding source for the Georgia Mayor's Office for the purposes of the repair of the Georgia Gym facility. Bill number 155-33, which would allocate $39,000 from the same funding source to the Talafofu Mayor's Office for the purposes of the repair and upgrades to the Talafofu baseball field. Bill number 156-33, which would allocate $273,000 from the same funding source pursuant to Public Law 33-60 to the Department of Public Works for the repair of the Yamatic Bridge towers. And finally, Bill number 157-33, which would allocate $150,000 from the same funding source to the Sinahani Mayor's Office for the completion of the open-air gymnasium renovations and reconfiguration of the parking lot, building of a playground, and renovation of the baseball field. So, Mr. Chairman, once again, bills number 153-33, 154-33, 155-33, 156-33, and 157-33, all originating from the same funding source.
Okay, and in consideration that they're all originating from the same funding source, as a matter of to be expedient, I'm wondering if there's consensus that the motion you made be in the following order make it item 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So Bill 153, 154, 155, 156, and 157. Because I imagine you'll be able to get up and speak on the first bill, sit down, then that moves if it does, in that following order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, there being no objections,
Mr. Chair,
to make
I'm
it
sorry.
items 4 through 8 on the agenda.
Just so that we recognize a communication that was received by
I was going to do
yourself.
that too, but please, I defer to you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Did you want to go ahead?
I defer to you. Go ahead.
Mr.
Recognize
Chair,
the communication.
Just so that we don't do this without recognizing communication that was forwarded by a representative from the governor's office. There was a letter that had read that, in fact, these bills all look at savings from the government of Guam's 2007 to 2009 general obligation bonds to fund various projects. The $1.57 million in savings were used to help pay tax refunds. And then he enumerates all the pieces of legislation with the exception of 2 items, Mr. Chair, and that's the bill number 159, which would have otherwise given $250,000 for our farmers. The chairman of appropriations had incorporated that provision within the fiscal year 16 budget, so that is not one of the pieces of legislation that I'm proffering to be placed on the agenda. And also, in addition to that, bill number 158, which would have otherwise paid off the outstanding overtime for Typhoon Halong. All that information now is being reconciled because Bobby has, the outstanding for Bobby has been paid, so we're looking at anticipating the executive branch either addressing this through other means. So those are the 2 pieces of legislation. And then he goes on to read, Mr. Chairman, these bills, all of which have merit, total $1.77 million. And like I shared with you, $420,000 was extracted from the overall allocation that exceeds the $1.57 million realized from the successful refunding authorized by Public Law 33-60. So I certainly recognize the communication signed or received or sent by Mr. Chris Duenas from the governor's office, but understanding how the appropriations and the allocations and the expenditures of resources works based on my tutelage or my mentor, Mr. Vice Speaker, certainly this was an unanticipated cash realization during the close to the end of the fiscal year, and without authorization and appropriation to be able to expend those resources, that really should originate from this body. So that's one of the reasons why I'm offering these proposals. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, and we'll make sure that that communication is part of the respective committee reports as a supplement to the committee report. Okay, thank you. So the chair will recognize Senator Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to make a motion to place Resolution 177 on the agenda for consideration by the body. This is relative to expressing Ilasatura's support for the passage of House Resolution 9, the Innovation Act, that is currently in the Federal Congress. This is with respect to creating a more transparent legal process for those who would be abusing their patent litigations. And this was a particular issue with respect to websites that were getting a lot of litigation, and a lot of our local companies use these same website tools that are constantly being targeted for federal litigation, and so they would like for us to consider supporting House Resolution 9 as it makes its way through the Congress in order to protect our local businesses who have these website tools that oftentimes get challenged in court. So that's my first motion to place Resolution 177 on the agenda.
Okay, on Senator Nicholas's motion to place Resolution 177 on the agenda, and he has conducted a public hearing and a committee report has been filed, I believe. There being no objections, hearing no objections to order. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then we have a number of appointments in our committee that we're looking to get confirmed in this session. The first two are to the Insurance and Banking Board. This is for Ms. Elfrida Ada and Ms. Laura Lynn Dakanai, who've both been appointed to the board by the governor.
Okay, on that motion, again, hearing no objections, so ordered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The third item is also an appointment for Mr. John Ray Taitano to the ABC Board, appointed by the governor.
Okay, on the motion to place Mr. Taitano from the who's been appointed ABC Board, there being no objections, so ordered. Thank you.
And last request is also an appointment for Mr. Frank Lujan to serve as the Chief Technology Officer, appointed by the governor.
Okay, on that motion, hearing no objections, so ordered. Okay,
That's all,
thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only have two bills, but they are really important bills because they will affect our children from pre-K all the way to the University of Guam. So the first bill is 182-33. It's an act to appropriate the sum of $250,000 from the initial savings realized in fiscal year 2015 pursuant to Public Law 33-060 to the University of Guam for the purpose of addressing the capital outlay projects and maintenance needs in anticipation of the Western Association of Schools and Colleges visit later on this year. And Bill 183-33, which is an act to appropriate the sum of, I believe this has already been substituted by the committee, but the sum of $500,000 from the initial savings, the same funding source of Public Law 33-60 to the Department of Education for operational purposes. I am humbly requesting the committee to approve the inclusion of these two bills to be addressed in our upcoming session. They are just very important. We all know about the struggles that our public schools have been experiencing, and during the public hearing, the University of Guam had noted that I believe they had approximately $6 million that had not been released to them yet. That was just a couple of weeks ago. So these two institutions and these two educational organizations are really in need of these appropriations. So I want to thank the committee chair on appropriations and adjudication for holding the public hearings and reporting out
Okay, thank
the
you.
two bills.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Underwood. And given that it's a similar funding source as what those bills that Senator Uggan and a few others have introduced, will you also consider, along with your motion to place these two items on the agenda, to make it agenda items 9 and 10? So after, because the whole debate might not only be where it's going, but the funding source as indicated by Senator Chris Dueñas.
Certainly.
So her motion is to place Bill 182-33 and 183-33 as agenda items 9 and 10 on the session agenda. Okay. There being no objections, hearing no objections, so ordered. Anything else, Senator?
And I believe I do have that resolution, number 216, that will recognize Mr. Jose Torres and his contributions. And
which you would introduce to the body when we're in motions.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. The chair will now recognize Senator Tony Ada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us the opportunity to place bills onto the session agenda. And I also like to thank the Chairman on Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure, Lands, Border Protection, Veterans Affairs, and Procurement for reporting out Bill 134-33. And this is an act to rezone Lot 3257-4-2 in the municipality of Sinajana from agricultural to commercial zone. And what this is, Mr. Chairman, is that this property is located right where the village is, the current dialysis renal care center. The owners of the property also want to expand that medical facility to include other medical services that will be provided there, and rezoning this property from agricultural to commercial will give them that opportunity to do that, and they look forward to moving forward with building their medical facilities to service our people with whatever medical needs they may have.
Okay.
Thank you.
On the motion to place Bill 134-33, hearing no objections, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I also have another bill here, and this is Bill 144-33. This is introduced by Senator Frank Blas Jr., and this is an act to add a new section 4123 of Chapter 4, Title 5 GCA, and this is relative to establishing federal receipts reporting requirements, and a committee report has already been filed on this, Mr. Chair.
On the motion to place Bill 144, sponsored by Senator Blas and Senator Espadan, hearing no objections, so ordered. Anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to place Bill number 91-33 LS on the agenda for the next session. Bill number 91-33 LS is an act relative to the issuance of business licenses, and this legislation was, I know it's an older topic or a long-standing topic, but it continues to be a topic that the business community, and particularly the Chamber of Commerce, is very interested in having this body entertain. And what it does essentially is provide that business license renewals occur at the expiration of the business license as they were issued, as opposed to what it is presently, where they're issued on the same day annually. And so I'm raising this in the interest of all those who would like us to consider this revision. Thank you. And that's Bill 91-33 LS.
Okay, on Senator Torres' motion to place Bill 91-33 LS, hearing no objections for the placement on the session agenda. Hearing no objections, motion carries. Anything else from Senators McCready and Senator Ada? From Senator Morrison, Senator McCready, Senator Spadan? Okay. I would like to recognize Senator Ada for a motion to place my bill on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to place Bill 171-33 as amended. It's an act to mandate that the Bureau of Statistics and Plans collect data on the amount and type of all produce imported to Guam, and such information to be listed quarterly by type of produce on both the Bureau of Statistics and Plan and the Department of Agriculture's websites.
Okay, thank you. On the motion to place Bill 171 on the agenda, hearing no objections, motion carries. Okay. Open discussion. Is there any open discussion? If not,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an inquiry because of the letter from the Office of the Governor with respect to these various appropriations, will we be having any clarification from the administration with respect to whether or not these funds are in fact available during the course of the session? Because the letter from Chris Duane states that the money was already spent for tax refunds, but as was stated earlier by one of the sponsors of the bill, is that money should not have already been spent because there was no appropriation or authorization. So I would like to see if we can get clarification from the administration if it was in fact spent for that purpose, and if they are going to remain consistent in that position, then to provide the justification as to what authorized them to spend it for that purpose. So if we can in the session.
That's a great point. I know that both the Committee on Appropriations as well as their respective sponsors will want to make that clarification so they can present it to the body, because a letter like that will certainly cause pause in the body moving forward, despite the governor saying that the money may not be there. But I'm sure that the sponsors, in their interest to move this legislation forward, are very confident that the money should be there, and so that should not be the case today. And I'm sure you're preparing your arguments to that effect. Right? Yes. And yes, you can. Okay. Okay, colleagues, thank you, Senator Stiglitz. It's a good point. I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn, subject to call of the chair, and the speaker has called us into session at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Okay. It's been moved. There's no objections to order. The burden is on you guys.